I'm Will,
And I'm Steven.
and this is the Post P Chronicles.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.
So, Steven, who do we have with us today?
We have the honor of a very distinguished gentleman. I'm excited to get to hear his story. Tavo Vega. What's up, Tavo?
Hey, how you doing, both Stephen and Will? Hey, thanks for having me on here and trusting and being part of this process.
Most definitely, man. We appreciate you being on here. Like most guests, we always like to start with the simple question: where are you from? Where'd you grow up, Tavo?
Uh, so I was born in Oakland,
Okay,
California. Spent about 6 years of my the first years of my life there. Then we moved to Modesto, California, from the age of between 6 to 9 years old, and then my dad passed away when I was
sorry to
nine,
hear
and
that.
then we moved to Mexicali, Mexico, to be closer to the family. My mom, be closer to support. We stayed there for about a year, and then we relocated to Central California for about 3 years in an apartment complex, and then we moved back to Mexicali for about 6 months, 8 months or so. Um,
How old are you at this point when you moved to El Centro, real quick?
I was about 10 years old. About 10
How
years
old
old.
are you when you lost your father?
I was nine.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Trying to keep a timeline here.
yeah. So when my dad passed away, soon after we moved, a couple months later, we moved to Mexicali, Mexico, and then stayed there for about a year. Then we relocated to El Centro, just across the border to Imperial County. Stayed in an apartment complex for about 3 years. They moved back to Mexicali for about 6 months as we're in a transition, moving to from apartment to a house. Then moved back to El Centro, different part of town. And then I stayed there for until 18 years old when I was incarcerated.
Okay.
Now, was
So,
this
can I ask you a
90s?
question?
Oh, go
I
ahead.
want to talk about. Sorry, for the loss of your father. But how
Yeah.
was your relationship with your dad? How was your dad?
It was a very traditional family. Dad worked worked on trucks, vehicles, did some of the hard labor around the house. And then my mom was a stay at home. What I remember my dad is, he was there. I don't remember being too loving, like hugging and stuff like that. But
Right.
I always sensed that the love was there. When we go, one of the, probably the fondest, one of the best memories I have is when we would have this old Chevy, like a 54, 55, something like that, throw the trash in the back, and he's like, get in the back. Because we're gonna go dump, we're gonna go throw all the trash in the dump. And then like that was my bonding time with him. But yeah,
Man.
my mom for his lunch, his breaks, we would take him food and sit there in the van in the parking lot while he ate lunch. But yeah, it was a very traditional in a family that I remember.
So now you say
Okay.
only your dad worked. So how did that affect the structure of your family when your dad passed away? Now your mom, who's a stay-at-home mom, obviously moves you back to be with family. How's her life look now?
Went bad. Um, so at the time in Modesto, when my dad passed away, we lived in a white neighborhood. It was a street. Eventually, about on a couple months or a year before we left, another Mexican family moved in. But yeah, my mom didn't speak English. My mom didn't speak English. She didn't. My dad took care of all the bills. I remember my mom talking about soon after my dad passed away, she started getting all these phone calls about all kinds of bills and responsibilities my dad had, but my mom didn't know nothing. And so it took a toll on her, extremely, not knowing English, not understanding much of the functions outside the house. And then my mom, quickly, all the responsibilities she had. So it was myself and my sister. And it's one of the biggest reasons, the main reasons why we moved to Mexicali, Mexico, because my mom just couldn't handle none of the bills. Like, so, a lot of stuff happened within the family. A lot of money was lost. Well, it wasn't lost; it was stolen. At least that was brought to my attention. And then so my mom got stuck with pretty much nothing. And it's what, like I said, and she never got the opportunity to mourn. I didn't understand this when I was a kid. That's when a lot of the abuse started, a lot of the emotional, physical abuse, and my mom started taking it out on me and my sister, mainly on me first because I was the first. In being a very traditional family, here I was. Even then, the influence of my dad had a major impact on me about being a man in the house. So here I
Right.
am, 9 years old, already. It hit me. I didn't know what it was being a man in the house, but I knew it was up to me now to move forward, move the family forward, but I didn't understand it. So here I am trying to navigate outside the house, and my mom's like, "Get your ass inside the house." And here I'm trying to break out the house, like, go do something, and then a lot of the physical.
You were 9 years old. You were 9 years old,
Yeah.
and it sounds like your dad. He put a lot of structure within that 9 years. He instilled a lot of structure into you. And then something I heard recently that my sister said was survival mode. We don't have the time to think about having fun or doing all these different things. She's just trying to survive, and it sounds like that's where your mom was. She just immediately went into survival mode. She didn't know how to, survive outside of my husband is doing everything. And then, like you said, it must have took an extreme toll on you, because at 10 years old, 9 years old, you, in your mind, well, my dad was the man of the house. Now I'm the man of the house at 9 years old. So now you move to Mexicali. How does that start to form? What are you starting to do to become the man of the house?
So yeah, we moved over there. It's extremely hot. It's about 115 degrees Fahrenheit on a daily in the summer. I do not understand proper Spanish. So here I go into this world where extreme poverty, family, there was no sewage system in some of the house, in the homes of my tias, my families. Barely any electricity, barely any running water. The bathroom, so it was an outhouse in the back. Extreme poverty, and we sleep in the dirt floors as we try to bouncing around from house to house. Sleeping in the driveways, in the van. Even if we slept on the floor, it was dirt floors, and you could hear the rodents running around. But yeah, I go over there, and I am extremely like fish out of water. Up until then, I was a little square kid. My mom, and my dad took care of everything. Like I was cool. And here now, all of a sudden, I'm trying to be the man. I'm looking around like who am I supposed to emulate, follow here? And what do I gravitate? It's the roughnecks in the neighborhood. And not all the roughnecks, it's in that environment, in a very conservative, patriarchal environment. The way you took care of the family is what I was noticing. It was a man. They didn't have to be gang members, they didn't have to be none of that. It was just imposing and setting boundaries within the community with their family. That's how they protected. And these were family men. And sure, the story quickly started to witness how there was an altercation, they'll block off the street and go at it, physical fist fights. This is what I'm looking at. Like, and again, these are not gang members, these are family men. And then I'm hearing the conversations, what it is to be a man. So I start buying into it. And it was my cousins, they would go work early in the morning, bag groceries, go sell tacos. At 9, 10 years old, I was already it was a trip just last week. We were passing by, and I was telling my nephew about, look, where I used to work. I did a few times, yelling aguas frescas, tacos at 10 years in the morning, the hustle. And he was just looking at me like, what? This was part of my upbringing. Yeah. And then it was a major cultural shock for me. Then they started, the kids started making fun of me. I fell quickly into that. I'm too Mexican in the US, not Mexican enough in Mexico, or not a real Mexican. I fell into, I'm the gringo, the pocho, don't really fit in. And here I am as a little kid, want to be validated, accepted. So, I'm following whatever they're doing in the streets. And quickly, it took a while. I didn't really start breaking laws or anything. It took a while because my mom had a deep impact and big influence on me as a kid, not to do anything wrong. I'm probably more scared of my mom than everybody else at the time. Yeah, so I went through that whole process, and the man kind of making fun of me, like undermining me being around, and here I am trying to stick up for the family. So it started making me very insecure. Like, again, looking around, like, what do I got to do here? Right. And I would notice, and I knew, and eventually I started into some trouble, and I knew what I was doing wrong. Every time I broke a window or, and I ran, is because I knew I was doing it wrong. It was just the reward though of starting to become more aggressive little by little, calling people names. That was much more
the validation you were getting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So for the first few years, I was good. It was good. I would say when we moved to El Centro, when I was about 13 years old, I got introduced, I went to school, started going to school, and my mom used to dress me up. She used to buy the clothes and put, dress me up how she wanted me to dress me up. So now I go to school and here I am wearing tight clothes or just not fitting in. My mannerisms are, from going from Modesto, my mannerisms are one way. And I go to Mexicali, and these are some roughnecks. My cousins, like everything's just fast. These kids are already running around late at night, and we're the same age. And here I am, used to being tucked away in bed at 8 at night, and so I go to El Centro, and here I am again, another cultural shock for me because these other kids in El Centro, some of them were pretty fast thinking, but they dress differently, and here I am dressing not to their standards or the way they're. So again, I'm out of place. I'm trying to fit in, and so what is it? I go to what, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, but by then it's like I was a smart kid, but things were happening, and then when we moved to back to Mexicali, this time now I was paying attention. Like, man, screw all this. Like, I can't. Like, I gotta do something myself. Like what, like 14 or so. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because you're dealing with a lot at this time. And one thing I noticed that you said your mom didn't get a chance to grieve. It sounds like you didn't really get a chance to grieve your father either. You was thrust into this man of the household role in a new environment with new people, new kids, faster life than you were used to, and you just trying to play catch up, play catch up, play catch up. And the only thing that you was able to gravitate towards was the aggressive violence perpetrated by the older men, because you have to emulate somebody. You said I needed to emulate somebody. Who am I going to emulate? I'm 10 years old. And it was the aggression, right? And now you're 14 years old, you're catching on, but now you're 15. How is this aggression starting to take hold? Because I'm pretty sure at this time, 5 years, 6 years in, you know who you are, or you're really developing into who you're going to be. So what does that start to look like 15, 16 years old?
Yeah, so I was a bit of a late bloomer. Again, I think a lot of it had to do with my mom, my
Right.
mom's principles, and don't get in trouble, don't come home. I don't want, I don't want them calling me to school because you're getting ass whooping. So that's what I was more scared of. But
Mm.
yeah, by the time 14, 15 came along, it's when I was like, screw this. And sure, and I remember I called somebody a name once, and I remember the person backed down. And it was probably my second taste of power. And the first time was when I was in Modesto. One of the kids, my dad had just passed away, and once my dad passed away, a lot of the kids they turned on us quick. They started calling us, beaner, wet bag, go back to Mexico. I even got held down, they pulled water on me. So I started experiencing some of that. And I remember they did. So one thing was harming me, but once they did something to my sister, she came home crying. I remember I just ran out. And during this process, that my dad and my mom had put me in karate classes to learn how to defend myself. I think a lot of it because I lived in a white neighborhood. And I remember I ran out, saw the kid, and I kicked him around the stomach in front of a bunch of other little kids. We're all 9 years old. And
Yeah.
they started crying, and that's where I got my first taste of violence. And so here we go. I called somebody a name. I remember this. It was and the person backed off, and then but now we're teenagers. We're running the streets now with my cousins, and I'm emulating really my cousin, the second oldest one, and I'm the third oldest for that whole generation of cousins, and we're running streets, and these kids, the men, everybody, like, I think there was no guns because of the poverty level. Nobody really had the means for it. But what was imposed on us, and we were told, is you when you want to harm somebody, you walk up to the person. It's a physical thing. It's a man thing to walk. Don't be throwing rocks or something from from a distance. No, you're gonna go do something. Um, Go fight it out. And I witnessed a few more fights, and these were vicious fights. And it's like, all right, here we go. And I remember it was at one point where it became my turn. And the kids started, my cousins and all the other people in the neighborhood started like kind of taunting me and egging me on. Like, and this kid was huge. And I was scared. I didn't want to fight. This kid was massive. And then we're probably the same age, but he was just massive. And he backed down. And the reward, like, everybody like acknowledged me. All right, you at least you came out. So it was more about heart. It wasn't even about winning a fight. It was more about winning having heart.
So let me ask you another question. At this time, looking back, because we talked about this, and the things that we go through as children, we don't know what we're going through in the moment, right?
Yeah.
But hindsight, what was something that you needed to hear, right? So if a parent is going through this with their kid, right, and they don't know how to connect with them, but you can see it, you're like, dang, I was going through that. This is what I needed to hear to stay on that path. What is something that you need to hear? Talk to that kid or that parent who has that kid.
I think intellectually, I probably, in that sense, I probably needed to hear, you know what, all these names are being called. It's nothing personal. These are something that they have going on, and they're just taking it out on you. Because I was taking everything personal. Like when they were making fun of me, when I would mispronounce a word in Spanish, they'll taunt me about it, and I will get so defensive, and I'll push, I'll disassociate myself. I didn't want to like, and then when I would come back here, I was trying even harder. And then probably an emotional level, probably just say, I love you. Like I got you. Don't worry. Like, doesn't matter. I'm gonna stand behind you regardless of what happens. You don't have to, just be a kid. Don't this is a part of the process. I think that I needed an explanation what was going on.
Right.
Because later on, in a few years later, late into my teens, I found out a whole lot of stuff that was going on with the family. And my mom, and during all these years, there was a lot of abuse with my mom, a lot of physical and verbal abuse with my mom towards me. And now I understand why she was that way. She just didn't understand herself how to grieve, how to control herself, her emotions. And unfortunately, she was taking it on what was probably what was easiest and what was on me, because she had no control over everybody else, what was going on. Because she was being taunted. Well, she was called. I think she was pretty much kind of like a sellout because she left the U.S. She left Mexicali. She left the family. She came to the U.S. For the typical stuff, for a better life. And now she was over here, and over there they thought my mom was rich or we were rich. We weren't rich. We just had clean clothes, and it wasn't even nice clothes, clean clothes. But they took it as my mom had left them behind for something better.
Okay.
So now when we come back, or even once my dad passed away, everybody just a lot of people turn on my mom, and then we go back to Mexicali, and they're like, they're not accepting her, and we're her kids, and we're little gringo kids, so we took
Not accepting you.
Yeah, they weren't fully accepting us there.
It's funny that you say all this because, there's a saying out there that says, about your parents, right? It's not you're sitting here, you're not placing all the blame on your mom. You're not like, it's her fault. That's why I turned out the way I was. You acknowledge her flaws, but you realize all the stuff she's going through. There's a saying, there's a point in our adulthoods, first we demonize our parents, then we humanize our parents, and then we sympathize with our parents, right? And it sounds like you've gotten to that third step to where, hey man, I know she wasn't a great mother, or at least, but she was trying, but now I understand and I can sympathize with all the stuff. She lost her husband. She had to go back to Mexico. We were sleeping on the floor. She couldn't pay bills. She couldn't take care of her own children. How was she supposed to feel? She couldn't even grieve her parents, Yeah. And so now you can sympathize with her to be like, okay, it wasn't ideal, but I understand, and it's good that you can get to that point. And I think a lot of adults, when they reach that point, they can finally move to a journey of healing and continue to love their parents.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was part of my healing process. We'll probably get to that later. It was getting incarcerated, but I had to really understand what led up to me, what was going on with me. A lot of it had to do a lot of exploring with my mom, and I would, when she'll come visit me in the prison, I would ask her like, man, what's going on here? And then, she started opening up about a lot of things. And it's like, okay, I get you. My mom and I, we still don't have this loving relationship because it was never there. So it's kind of awkward. But yeah, I'll go over there, her house, sit there for hours. I don't visit her as much because I'm in San Diego and they're still in Pearl County. But I get it now. It's like I don't, and then I probably even struggle because of me, a lot of stuff I went through. I'm not an emotional person. But I have a deep appreciation for what she did. She never abandoned us, even through everything she was going. She was crossing us the border every single day to go to school because she wanted the best for us. I did at the time. I hated it because she was, get us up at 3, 4 in the morning, cross the border. I hated it, and it was kind of embarrassing at the same time. Crossing the border and going to school, and I resented it. But now that I look back, it's like, man, she was persevering. She was hustling.
Man.
Yeah, and I just didn't get it at the time, and I think that's part of what I was rebelling and going out to the streets.
Man.
Yeah.
So, you know, elephant in the room, the streets got a hold of you, and eventually you went to prison. So let's talk about that. What happened, if you want to talk about that, or just, you know, we understand the mindset of what got you there, you know, all the struggle, you got to start getting the taste of what violence can get you, you know, or even that power of what's up, homie? Oh, man, we want no problems. All right, well, I'm gonna keep on pushing like this. You know, I'm gonna keep being aggressive. I'm gonna keep being, you know, quote unquote gangster, because that's what's getting me the respect that I've so desperately wanted my whole life. But that respect that you were seeking landed you in prison.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what happened with me was I got a lot of those principles that I picked up in Mexicali. Very intense, very aggressive, approach somebody. Don't, you know, even if you fear them, you impose yourself. By then I was like fully immersed in it. Again, I knew right from wrong, but imposing aggression was what was going to get me ahead. So what happened was I'll come back to the States, and I carried that with me. So I started getting into fights, and I started noticing people treating me different. And I started running around. Initially, I started running with like tagger crews and stuff like that, but they wanted to write on walls. I wanted to fight. And then the weapons started coming in. I started carrying knives. Again, when we were crossing the borders, you know, there was a few incidents, a few times where they would run. The people I was with, they would run. I'll stay behind fighting because you're not supposed to fight. It's better to take an ass whoop, and, you know, have people acknowledge you, respect you, or even fear you afterwards. That way, if they know you're not going to run, they're not going to come at you again. And that's what the mindset I had developed. So I'll come back to the States with this mindset. And sure enough, as I started fighting, they, you know, people treating me different. At the time, I thought it was respect, but it was probably more fear, if anything. Maybe there's some respect because I was standing on my own, because I started running with different crews. But and then some of the gangs started trying to recruit me, and I didn't want to. I think a lot of it too had to do with again, my mom. I didn't want my mom hearing anything, and I always kept everything outside the house. But eventually, um, I was in one high school, and then I was in this phase where they're opening up another high school. I got caught fighting. But I think what they did was they just, you know what, screw it. They sent Tavo over to the new high school, you know, Central. They sent me there, and I was kind of a loner. Um, and my mom went to school a few times because of me, and she just kind of pleaded with me like, man, like, you gotta do something. Like, don't, you know, she's by herself, you know, she's doing her part, and then she kind of shaved me. Okay, let me back off. And I had a girlfriend, and well, before that, at the new high school, you know, they got all these gangs and you know, it's like a yard. It was a trip because everybody's trying to find their place in at the school, at the new yard, all these gangs.
Yeah.
And then I knew some of them, but at the time, by then I was starting to get into some tension with some of the gang members because I wanted to join the gang, and they'll see about myself. So I kind of fight a few times over that. And there was this big old, almost be a rumble, and then I got caught right in the middle because I knew both sides, some of the guys on both sides, and security came and turned into a big old thing. But I actually liked the attention that it got me. I enjoyed it. But again, my mom, and I was like, okay. Then is when I had a girlfriend, some other kid, you know, vandalized or whatever books and stuff, and I asked him, can you please erase? It was one of them, you know, boyfriend girlfriend thing, protecting the girlfriend. And he called me a name in front of a bunch of people. I tried to walk away, and then I went into the bath. So I was fighting, right? Security knew I was fighting, but they weren't really saying anything. They probably already knew, like, okay, he's just, you know, he's not, I don't have no malice intent. It was more about defending myself. And then that same kid walked into the bathroom, walked in behind me. We got into a fight. It went bad for the kid. He was all swollen up. And I didn't know his mom was a tenure school teacher there at the high school. I was out of there. So they sent me the continuation, got kicked out, sent me to adult continuation. And that's where it really picked up, because this is where all the screw ups were at. You know, the ones got kicked out of all these schools. I got into a few fights. And some of the other gangs were like, they're coming after you. Like, you need to align yourself with somebody. He goes, you can't run on your own. And, you know, after a while, I started getting tired. And the gang that I eventually joined, they were witnessing this. They were seeing what was going on. And they were like, why don't you come with us? I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then one day I was just tired. And they're like, come with us, walk across the street with us. And I walked across the street with them, and it was over. You know, the rival gangs now were like, okay, he's from the, you know, he's from the neighborhood. Walked over to the neighborhood, their spot. Then here were these kids that I went to school with that I knew, and I went on like two days in a row, three something like that. And what I received there was what I thought was love, which probably is love. They hugged me, they looked at me in the eye, they called me by my name. You know, we shook hands. Hey man, you come from school? How you doing? And I was done. It was over. Like, oh, this is me. You know, went out to the street a few times, got into fights, picked up a knife, used it a few times on people, guns again. And the whole thing was, here I had this aggression from Mexicali, what I had learned to impose. Don't, you know, you walk up to somebody and quickly, you know, got immersed into that gang, the mindset. And I was loving the attention from the fellas, my homeboys. You know, I've used a gun once or twice. I was carrying it, but eventually just used it once or twice. Went to juvenile hall. I got busted actually in Mexicali as well, twice. Went to adult jail over there as a minor. And then, you know, something I guess does something about juvenile hall and going to jail, gives you this false sense of confidence. Like, man, if I could survive that, here I come out with a little bit of status. Yeah. And then, you know, again, assaulted a few more people. I probably didn't pick up a gun because, again, the mindset that I was told, like, don't try to harm somebody from a distance, walk up to somebody. So I think that's what gravitated more towards the knives. And then, you know, I got initiated to the gang, and then here we go, wanted acceptance, smoked my first joint, and I snorted some meth. And then at the age of 18, the homies are schooling us. You know, they're going. So a lot of us started turning 18 now, and there's, you know, there's some wars going on in the county jail. And they're schooling us what the process looks like when we go in. So I go in at, you get arrested for attempted murder and gang enhancement, stuff like that. Go in at 18, and I remember I sat down at the intake here at the gang unit. They're like, you want to go into protective custody? And one of the older homies had already, you know, schooled us on this process, and we're like, nah, I'm like, nah. It was, where we're putting you, we're gonna put you with all the veterans. He goes, you sure you want to go there? And I'm like, put me where you want. Sure enough, like, I walked into the module. Here I was, a scrawny little kid, probably 150 years old. I mean, 150 pounds. And once I walked, these are like this is 97, when the weights they had just taken the weights away. So these dudes were massive. And I was like holy shit. It was like, I ain't gonna lie, I was scared. And you know, I see these big old the rival gang tattoos on them, and I'm like, son of a. And again, you know, I'm just coming out the street, you know, it got the best of several rival at the time. And sure enough, I walk into my cell, and here comes this massive dude, huge. And he's like, he walks up, he goes like, what's up, man? Where you from? What's your name? I tell him, and he's like, you got any dope on you? And I'm like, nah. And then he walks out. 5 minutes later, they're like, he goes, hey, they want you upstairs. And I'm like, fuck, here we go. And again, there was some war, sort of tension going on at the time. And so I said, screw it, here we go. I was scared. And I walked up there to the cell. There's like 5 dudes, they're all rival gang members. These are older dudes in their 30s and 40s. And they started giving me, it was a trip. You know, I was always a smart kid. You know, I used to be student of the month, stuff like that. I catch on, you know, emotional. I didn't understand emotional talent until later, but like now I was already applying this stuff. I was reading between the lines, reading body language. So I walked in that cell. They started complaining about my homeboys. Here I am, 18 years old. These are the dudes, you know, inside the system. I'm like, why are they crying? Complaining about my homeboys. They did, you know. But I didn't say nothing. I stayed quiet. I'm like, I'm just nodding my head. And yeah, I went back, and I had homeboys all over the county jail except that damn module, the one I landed in.
For that unit.
I was all by myself. But yeah, I lasted about 2-3 months in there, and I quickly learned the ropes in those 3 months in the mainline GP. Started assaulting people quick. Got caught with the knife, got sent to the hole. And then that turned into a whole fiasco. Ended up in a module full of rival gang members. But
you know, it's funny. Your story reminded me of my experience, because I went to the county jail, at 18 years old from juvenile hall on my 18th birthday, and I was all of 150 pounds soaking wet. And they moved me into the cell with a big dude who was a rival gang member who was swole like Steven. Swole like Steven. And he like, yeah, what you in here for? And I'm just like, and I was arrested for, committing a crime against his, one of his homies. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, he's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. And I told him, and I was shaking in my boots, bro. I'm not even gonna lie, I was scared. He looked like Steven. He looked like Steven, and I'm 150 pounds. And I'm like, yeah. But he was like, man, you need to read the Bible. I said, yeah, let's read the Bible together.
You're like, amen.
So I feel it, man. So your county jail, you said you caught on fast, man. You caught on fast. Is this the first time you was in the county, or was this the first and last time?
Nah, it was my first. Eventually got paroled and returned.
Okay.
But yeah. So I spent so they put me. I got caught with the knife eventually. They found a knife in my cell. They put me in that seg, and that turned into a whole thing. We got to a riot with the cops, were deputies, and it turned into a whole thing, gang rival stuff. Again, my name was already out there in the streets about what I was doing too, and they put me in the module where it was all nothing but rivals from that one particular gang that where I was assaulting some of the fellas from that neighborhood. And that turned into a whole political thing. My homeboys are sending word like, hey, if anything happens to Tavo, it's gonna go all bad over there. But yeah, and then I got caught with more knives there in that module, and I picked up more time. But eventually I caught the chain to Donovan State Prison with 5 years and a half. Took a deal. They dropped the attempted murder down to assault with deadly weapon, bodily harm, great bodily harm, gang enhancements, the knives and stuff like that. So yeah, I hit the joint and I mean hit the Donovan in December of 1997. That's when
How old are you at this point?
I had just turned 19.
19, going to Donovan, 5.5 years. What's going on? I mean, well, let's talk about what led to change, because we know it sounds like you're a big fan of knives at this point from teenager on. But what's going on in your head in order to, like, are you just still in survival mode at this point? Are you finally coming around to like, man, I don't want to do this the rest of my life?
Yeah, so I was in county jail, and then some of my homeboys some misguided me. They were like, go into the yard, that you find the biggest dude, take off on him, get your reputation. That's BS. Get myself in trouble, all of that. But yeah, they start telling me all these stories, and then I'm hearing. So I'm in the county jail, and hearing all these names, right? Who's who, what, and this and that. So I get to Donovan, and some of these names I heard, they were there, and it was like, holy shit, like this is it. And the impressions, big old whip, muscles all tatted up. I'm falling into the trap of personal perception. This all supposed to mean something. And yeah, I go on a mission, assault the first dude. I didn't go that well. He's in his 30s, and here I was a scrawny little kid. But I did that, and then moving knives around, stuff like that. Then I get shipped to Centinela. I get there, but there's this whole process. I'm listening to stories, right? Who's who, who's what did they do, supposedly do, right? I'm listening to the war stories, but here I am, I'm being indoctrinated now. I'm listening. This is what I want, power. What does it take to get there? Then I started snorting heroin, eventually started shooting up, got sent to Chuckawalla. I ended up paroling from there. But there is like, start selling, start using, prune all that stuff in the yard. There wasn't really much going on, so I think I got lucky. I didn't get caught up in going to the hole, none of that stuff. And for me, I don't know. It was I always wanted to get away with everything. I wasn't trying to get caught with anything. I was always doing something where it's gonna take me to the hole intentionally. I wasn't really feeling it. But yeah. So by the time I parole at 21 years old, I was immersed. I was full of hate. I thought it was a shit. I wouldn't talk to no. I only spoke to one black dude, one brother, the whole time I was there, and he was from San Diego. And he approached me. He seen the tattoo, the neighborhood on me, and he approached me. But that was it. White dudes, I only talked to them because we're in the same side of the day room. But I was indoctrinated to the whole, like that was it. And I paroled at 21 years old. I was a ticking
Active.
time bomb.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
I didn't realize how. I look back now and I was like, man, this is how I was functioning. Didn't give a shit about nobody. So I come out at 21. I lasted only 86 days out.
86 days.
86 days. I meant well. Then I got a job. I was trying to do, okay, let me go get a job. These are what, societies expect, expects of people. But I never got no help while I was inside. I'm hanging out with the dope dealers, dudes using, no programming. They put me in a post invoking, guess where the dope was coming through. And I didn't learn anything. I got indoctrinated to this whole culture. So I parole and I try to do the normie route, get a job. And I'm shooting up in the bathroom, working in a restaurant. I'm shooting up in the bathroom, getting in trouble and eventually, I got arrested again for resisting arrest, go hang out with the homies in the street corner. And I got arrested because we're about to go. I was trying to get a couple individuals to go hit a couple connections or something to go make some money because I was going to be a dad. The girl was dating, one of the girls was dating. She told me she believed she was pregnant. So here I have felt supposed pressure of being a dad. Okay, well, let me go do what do I know? It's like, okay, violence. Well, who has the money? Okay, them dudes over there, So I want to go a couple, but I started. It was just one of those weekends where a bunch of homies from all over the area they're from the neighborhood, but they lived in other parts of other counties or other states, and they just for some reason we were all there at the same time, and we were drinking in the corner. And somebody called the cops, and cops chased me. They got me for resisting arrest. But yeah, I was only supposed to serve 9-month parole violation, and some stuff happened in the county jail. I got put in that seg, and then eventually they let me out to the GP. I only lasted a day in GP, and caught a murder, attempted murder. While I was there, they found
while in the county jail.
In the county jail, yeah. So yeah, and then 2 days later, something after that, I got arraigned for murder and attempted murder.
How many years do you have to do for that?
What was that?
How many years do you get tacked on for that?
Well, I got a life sentence.
Okay.
Got a life sentence over that. I fought it for a few years in solitary. And even then, during the whole process, try to assault staff and knives again and dope and all that stuff from the ADSEG. And
so I got a question, because catching a new case while you're locked up, I know your mindset, and I don't want to put anything on you, but I would just imagine your mindset is, look, my life is over. I'm in this life. I'm never coming home, right? And you were already, like you said, you were already addicted to heroin. You was already doing your thing. You was already violence. And now you catch a life sentence while you're locked up. So change didn't start overnight, right? So how long did it take for you to get some hope back and start to repair your life?
So, I catch a life sentence, I go back. So trip out on this. This is, and I highlight this because I think the public should know, especially advocates and policymakers and put people in political office. So I end up back in Donovan, right? The life sentence, they take me to committee, or I go to my counselor for my point system, stuff like that. This is what they tell me. He goes, what level 3 you want to go to? And I'm like, what? Level 3? My cell is full of hygiene. I'm ready to go to 4-yard. Here we go. I'm done. You got to go, go deal with all that. He goes, you're going level 3. I'm like, level 3? And my 2 crimies are in the yard as well. And I come back and it's like, hey, fellas, I'm going to level 3. And they're like, level 3? And I'm like, yeah. And they sent me to Ironwood. And I landed in Ironwood. I'm life sentence. I'm done. I'm in that phase. Well, okay, I'm going to die in here. Let me make the best of it. I landed in a cell with a homie, and he walks in one day, and remember, I'm fresh out of red suits. You go to that committee stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there in the cell, and I'm on the top bunk, and he walks in with these books, and I'm like, these ain't regular books. Like, what is that? He goes, college books. He goes, what are you doing in college books? Oh, I got into a college program. And I'm like, college? I never heard of college in prison. But I get moved, and I bounce around. there's riots going on, and there's riots. I wasn't a part of them, but on all these yards, and they're moving us around in Ironwood. It's all, that's the overflow. Eventually, I end up in Delta Yard. And I'm there, and it's like, this is me, the rest of my life. And here I am I'm a lifer, right? So some of the lifers and some of the homies are like, hey, dude, it's like, you gotta do something with yourself. He goes, I had a homeboy there, and he goes, let me sign you up for college. And I'm like, nah, for what? I was already starting to mess around in the yard, a little dope here and there. And then and he kept bugging me. And I go, and it got to a point, goes, just sign me up, leave me alone. It was one of those just to get him off my back. And sure enough, a couple of weeks, I get a ducat, go to education, college program, and here I am, signed up for 2 classes eventually. This trip on this, I started taking the courses, right? The assignments. I felt compelled to do it because I told, honor your word. And when I'm getting the assignments back from the teacher, they put the little corny happy faces, great job.
Mm-hmm.
That felt so good. It felt so good to be acknowledged for something like that. And I got hooked. I got 2
like there's more worth to you than just violence and aggression. It's like, oh wow, someone sees me, they believe in me, and they know I have, something more to offer.
Yeah. And yeah, so I get 2 A's my first semester. I go back, give me 4 classes, give me 5 classes. Remember, I was always a smart kid in elementary. Right. Again, the teachers to sit me next to her or him and acknowledge me, like, this is Tavo, student of the month, this and that. But I lost value because people around me worked in the fields or clean other people's houses. I see no value in education. Everybody around me didn't people that looked like me that I knew, they weren't benefiting from education. So I lost the value of education by the time I hit junior high. And I used to pass classes because I used to just sit in class. I used to see what there's, and then when I'll take the exams, I'll pass the exams. I just never did no homework. And that's why I was passing just the exams, because I'll pay attention, I'll catch on. And so I was always a bright kid. So here I am in Ironwood and Delta Yard. When now it's like, I'm starting to rack up, I'm getting hooked on this. In this process too, some of the homies that were lifers, they're like, aren't you a lifer? And I go, yeah. He goes, you want to get out, you got to start going to these self-help programs. And I'm like, man, just sign me up. Part of it is get out at night. That's where some of the self-help programs are at nighttime. Get out. So I started sitting there, and I would never say nothing. I would just sit there but I would listen. And here we were, and I'm gonna be honest with you, there's a few times where I actually took a knife into the self-help, because here you got people from all walks of life, and I don't know any better, and I'm confined in a room with 20 other dudes. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But I'm listening to their story. People from all walks of life, skin colors, different side of the tracks, and they're talking about trauma, not having their dad, wanting to be loved, and they started doing something to me. I'm like, damn, that's what I feel. But I'm not saying nothing initially. So here we go. Fast forward a few years, but during this time, I'm still fucking around in the yard, still getting in trouble. And then I go to my first board hearing in 2006. I had just cut a couple of write-ups, and I was a mess. I do my first psych evaluation, and they're throwing all these terms I never heard of. So I'm looking
antisocial,
all the antisocial, all this other terminology. And now it's the first time where I started really looking at myself like, man, what does all this mean? And I start questioning. I'll write back to say, yeah, I'm not antisocial. I talk to people. Like, that's not what that means. Break it down. But when I go to the board hearing, it was a trip. I broke down crying. They're like, what do you want? What do you want? Because the psych is asking me questions. I just shut down on her. I'm not talking about what I've been through. Like, it's snitching. And then go to the board, and they're asking me these questions. I break out crying like, man. It goes, I want to go home. And he goes, but, and they tell me. Up until then, I'm hearing from all these stories from all these other lifers, how you go to the board, they're shutting you down. They're going to talk. They're condescending. They're this and they're that. It's all bad. And that wasn't my experience. These commissioners told me, because there's something different about you. We see you're already in college. You're in self-help programs. There's something different about you. You're different. You're not like these other individuals. He goes, if you get your act together, you can go home. And the first time I had heard that, like, well, damn, I could go home. yeah, so I go back to the yard and I still screwed around for a few more, a few more months. And it was one of those days. It was I remember it was 2006, 2007. I'm in the yard. And it was just, I don't know what you want to call it, spiritual awakening, aha moment, the light bulb goes off, whatever it is. And it just hit me. I'm the problem.
Mm.
I put myself in the hands of the legal system of everybody else that gave them the power to have so much control over me.
You know, there was something that you just said that I don't want to gloss over. And you said, I want the like DAs, I want the people, the powers that be, all the congressmen, anybody who's watching this with power. I asked you, how long did it take for you to get change? And you said, I went to Ironwood, and the very first time my cellie came in there with some books and I got into college. So it didn't take you 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 years. You immediately went to Ironwood, and education was how you began your change. And the reason why that stood out to me is because the very first time I went to a self-help group was at Ironwood. The very first time I went to college was in Ironwood. And all the prisons I had been to, it took me, I went to prison in 2007. I didn't get to a self-help group to 2016. That was the very first time I got into a self-help group. And that really did change my mindset, all those self-help groups. So that was powerful right there. And I hope that wasn't missed on any of the audience that's watching.
So thanks for bringing that up, because I was also actually had forgot about that. There was a point to this. So when I go to the board, that time when they told me you can go home, the commissioner caught it. The commissioner is looking at my file and he goes, "What are you doing in a level 3?" And I'm like, "They sent me here. I got no control when they put the shackles and they put me in the bus." He goes, "You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in a level 4." And he wrote it down. We requested look over Mr. Vega's file, sent him to a level 4.
Mm.
And I was like, damn, I'm just starting to like do something. I'm doing something good. Like I'm set. I'm going to college. I'm going to self-help programs. I'm still in that phase where I'm still, screwing around. I wasn't fully committed to changing my life yet. But yeah, the commissioner caught it. I go back. You know how after you go to board, you go to post-board hearing?
Mm-hmm.
The main counselor went on vacation. The one that knew the whole system of committees and reading all that requests from the commissioner, she left. She went on vacation. So they had this rookie just going through the motions. He didn't catch it.
Mm.
At the point they saw that Donovan, the counselor, screwed up my point system.
Oh,
Screwed
wow.
up. That's why I ended up in a level 3. This is how I
Man.
ended up at Ironwood with self-help and education. This is how I got exposed to something that's positive. It was a fluke.
Man.
In criminal justice, we'll get to San Diego State University. I speak in classes, speak in conferences, stuff like that. I forgot what the term is. I just did this like 2 months ago, 3 months ago in a class. There's this term where there's an argument. Do you give somebody incarcerated self-help regardless of they're ready, or do you give them self-help after they make a commitment when they're ready? There's an argument going, and I haven't taken any CJ courses, criminal justice courses, so I don't understand a lot of this terminology. But I engage with a lot of the students and professors from CJ. There's this argument about that, and they brought this up to me, and they're like, "Can you speak about your experience?" So what I'm explaining to you right now, this
Who
is
better?
It's this is my experience. It's up to you if you want to still make a judgment of if you provide somebody self-help or anything productive, even if they're not ready. But my experience is I was not ready for none of this.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up on a yard. They messed up the point system. I ended up in a yard where there's a bunch of programming. The college program was being run, and it was created and being run by other incarcerated individuals. And I benefited from it. So what started happening is education started opening up my mindset. I started growing out the barrio, the mindset, the gangs, and I started seeing mass incarceration. I started understanding this. So now I'm watching the media and I'm looking at politicians. I'm taking political science. I'm taking psychology. I'm taking marketing. I'm reframing it into the media in the yard. Marketing is tapping into somebody because you want to sell and motivate them. So I'm applying the same concepts to other aspects. Politicians, what they're saying, and I'm understanding. Like, wait a minute. And here I am in self-help programs, and I'm being humanized through the stories of my peers, the same peers that I was willing to go after their jugglers, and they're willing to go after.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question real quick. So,
Yeah.
Will, you were on level 4, and I know you
Mhm.
went from level 4 to level 3, Tavo. Does level 4 not have access to those college and self-help groups? Because it sounds like if you were on level 4, you wouldn't have had that.
Back then it was, they didn't, to my understanding, they didn't have it. So I never touched a level 4.
So
Yeah.
I can speak to that. So there were college courses, there were self-help groups, but it was limited. When I went to Ironwood, it was hard not to get into these courses. As soon as I got off the bus, there was someone to come in there and say, "Hey, do you want to sign up for college? Hey, do you want to sign up for these self-help groups?" I signed up for groups in Pelican Bay and High Desert, but they never came. Right? It's a yard of 1,000 or 2,000 people, but there's only 200 availability, right? And that only runs every 6 months. And so if you get in trouble, you drop down to number 1,000 or number 500. And so eventually you get to the point where, and I remember specifically, they opened the door for me one day. It was like anger management. And I was doing something. So I'm like, I'll go next week. I'm like, nah, I shut the door. And they never came back. I'm like, oh, I want to go. Like, no, you missed your opportunity. I'm like, what? All right, well, fuck it then. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my mind. All right, well, never mind. You know, but yeah, man, that's crazy. So let's fast forward because you did end up gaining a lot of insight. And when you went to board, I mean, you're sitting here in front of us today. Unless you broke out, then we're co-defendants again. But they ended up letting you out. And so, how was that feeling? Because you were no longer the man who went into prison. You were a whole new Tavo.
Yeah.
From
So
a lifer to someone who's coming out now. Tell us about that.
yeah, on my 5th board hearing, I was granted parole. I fell into the dark side of the legal system that you don't really read about in books. I got trapped into it. So it took me 5 board hearings to get out. But here I
How
am
many years does
out.
that equate to?
What's that?
How many years does that equate to? 5 board hearings. How many years is that?
So Marcy's law kicked in what 2008, where they could deny you up to 15 years. So I kept postponing a few times because I didn't want to deal with the Marcy's law. I don't want to get denied 15 years. And then eventually I started going back again. It was 2012 or something like that. So I was getting denied 3-year denials, but I was going back in in 2 years. So yeah, so from 2006 I went to my first board hearing, and then in 2019 is when I finally got granted parole and made it out.
And that's amazing because I mean, 2006 to 2019, that's 13 years of consistency and self-work where you buckled down and doubled down on yourself. Because I mean, I haven't been through it personally, but I don't know, after 3 or 4, I'd be pretty discouraged. Like, this is never going to happen. You know what I mean? So 13 years to consistently bolster yourself, increase your knowledge, work on yourself to get out is, kudos to you. That's amazing to just push forward and keep doing that.
Yeah,
And that's 24 years from 97 when you went to jail, was out 86 days and came right back. So that's 24 years. You was out 84 days in a 24-year span.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, by the time I was granted parole, and I was getting released, I had earned like 6 degrees. There was no bachelor's program I was at Ironwood, so I just keep accumulating associate degrees. Became an alcohol and drugs counselor, a couple of accolades. But yeah, I was ready. Like, okay, I studied a bunch of other books by self-made people. Yes.
You said you paroled from Ironwood?
Old Folsom. Eventually, I transferred to Old Folsom.
Okay, I'm about to say, because I was in Ironwood at that time.
Yeah.
You probably put me in college.
Yeah. Well, I started working for the college. Yeah, I was a student there for 14 years, and then I worked for the college, Palo Verde Community College, for 10 years, from C and D yard. They eventually moved over to C yard, but yeah, I came home. It was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, right? Be with family. Got the plane at Sacramento, and then landed here in San Diego, and Boris said, go ahead, go home to Peel County, back home, family, be my daughter. My daughter, by the way, I have a daughter. She was born. Remember, I was saying that part of the so she was born when I was in the county jail.
Hey.
And yeah, I get off at the airport here in San Diego. Shake, hug the family. My sister has me, and she hands me the phone. It's like, your parole agent will talk to you. I'm parole agent. When I go, what's up, man? Was everything good? He goes, I just want to let you know, you're staying in San Diego. And I'm like, San Diego? He goes, I had a job, I had house, car, and everything already lined up. It doesn't matter where you put me up. I always figure it out. I'll hustle. But from inside, I already had everything set up in Central. And they're like, nah. He goes, just look at it this way, you'll never step foot again in El Central. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I'm not even from San Diego. He goes, what are you talking? Like, he goes, so here we go with this whole legal system. Why do people reoffend? Why do they relapse? So yeah, spent the first day or two with family, and then parole agent picked me up, put me in a sober living. This is how terrified I was, like how vulnerable. Here I am, 39 years old, and full of confidence, coming out and ready to take on the world. And as he opens the door to get out the car so I could walk into the sober living. I wanted to hug the dude. I want to say, dude, do not leave me here. That's how vulnerable I felt.
Wow.
Like, what the hell is this? Like, where are you putting me? Like, and he goes, hey, this is part of the process. You're banned from going back to your hometown. And a lot of it had to do with gang stuff.
Right.
They were concerned about my gang stuff, my ties and stuff like that. And then a lot of it, pulling from a GP. They were, I dealt with a lot of stuff going through the board process. But yeah, they're like, nah, this is you. And I'm like, what the? And started, it was a grind after that.
So tell us about that grind. Because I know Tavo, but share with the audience who you are and what you have accomplished, the amazing things you've accomplished since coming home to San Diego, your new home.
Yeah. So I was already of the mindset is I'm gonna succeed out here. I wasn't tripping on I'm not going back. I didn't have that mindset. I wasn't tripping on returning back to prison. It was how to, again, all these self-help all this stuff I did inside. I came out with all these concepts, in a different way of looking at life. So it was like, I'm gonna succeed. So got a job, construction. They didn't want construction. Got already a drug counselor, but they were helping me. So I got in touch with from Old Folsom. I actually got in touch with Project Rebound at San Diego State University.
Okay.
Project Rebound is a program in the CSU system that helps form incarcerated individuals into higher education. So I came out, and I met somebody named Raquel Funches. At the time, she was working at when I wrote her from Old Folsom. She was working at SDSU. But now she was working at Southwest, and I ran into her by a fluke at the PAC meeting. Those meetings all parolees have to go to at the parole office for resources, and she helped me. I didn't even know how to turn a cell phone on when I got out, not even a cell phone. And she helped me with the whole application. So a few months later, I get this, notification. You got accepted to San Diego State. I had all the transfer requirement, I had everything because all the college courses I took inside, got in. Yeah, within 2 years, I got my bachelor's in sociology with the minor in cognitive behavioral science. Then I left the construction, started working at substance abuse treatment. I started getting experience out here. And then in that process, I applied for the master's program. And I got in. I got into a clinical rehabilitation council to become a licensed clinician. And I graduated a couple months ago from that program. And then here I am doing a whole lot of advocacy work in the community because I'm working reentry now, people incarceration, a lot of it with my lived experience, like, I'm being exposed to the system, how there's a lack of resources, and I'm getting exposed to mental health. My mental health started taking a hit bad when I got out because I'm in a new environment. My brain's not used to this. Depression's kicking in, I'm hyper vigilant. I've been diagnosed with 5 different things and 5 different psych evaluations. And then but I understood emotional intelligence. I understood what I was going through. I'm still going through it. And then yeah, I got my degree, my master's, and now and a lot of it has to do with reentry advocacy work. The lack of understanding in higher education of what it is, what the experience looks like for former incarcerated people. The lack of understanding. So I'll go speak with parole agents and probation, give presentations, law enforcement, going to the prisons, and the lack of research and understanding and data on our community, what it looks like coming out, motivated me to apply for a PhD of education at San Diego State. So I applied for that, and I got in. So next month, August of 2024, I start PhD. And and the focus is there is doing research in our community, putting in
Dr.
work,
Tavo.
still putting in work.
Are you Dr. Vega?
Nah, not yet.
That's it.
Not yet.
Not
You
yet.
will be soon though, huh?
Yeah, I should hope in a couple of years.
There you go.
And the idea is possibly become a professor at the university level. The attention of a couple of people, the way I present, and a lot of it is coming from the self-help. The skill set was developed in those prison classrooms. You know, doing whatever, anger management, you know, substance abuse, AA,
Eye for sight,
AVP, all that stuff.
AVP,
The skill
turn it
set,
to violence.
CGA, all that stuff. So yeah, now I'm in a position, you know, so by the way, in this whole process, people are seeing the advocacy work I'm doing and reframing the lived experience, you know, controlling how I was controlling my narrative. You know, so when I speak so the way I got into the master's and the PhD is I sold my story. So when I sat down in front of them, you know, you go to the board, you're going to learn how to speak. You go to the board 5 times, you're going to learn how to communicate. And then, so I sat down, they go, this is who I am. You know, I'm a gang affiliated individual. I stuck needles in my arm. I sold dope. I saw in solitary, you know, dealing with mental health, been diagnosed with a bunch of stuff. But it's not glamorizing. It's not justifying or making excuses. It's a story of empowerment. It's not giving up. It's being determined, resilience. Because you want my experience in your program. Let me flourish in your program so then I can go serve in the community. That's the gist of it. That's the angle I take. And in the master's, I hope I don't get anybody in trouble, but I was pretty much in before I even applied. They're like,
that's right.
Apply, we want you. Same thing.
Talk your talk. You know, talk your talk.
Same thing with the PhD. They were like, you know, I'm sitting there with the interview. She goes like, come on, let's go take a walk, give you a tour of the department. And she's like, right there, that's where you're going to eat lunch. Right there is where you have your study. Right here. She's telling me she's already manifesting what I'm there for. She goes, apply. I want you in the program. And she goes, and both of them, both director for the master's and the PhD, they're like, I want your lived experience in the program. You'll be a great asset to this. And then the PhD director said, just how I'm going to learn from the PhD program is going to learn from me. They want to know more of my story and the whole process. So, and yeah, I use this a lot of my experience in knowing, starting to go advocate in the community for resources and, you know, getting people. I make a joke. So and then this whole process, they see my hustle, my work at the university, and I got a job at San Diego State University. So I became the coordinator for Project Rebound at San Diego State. Eventually, I just left the job. I just left for more opportunities. It's a trip. You get those fancy initials behind your name with a master's degree. It's a whole different ball game.
Man, the world opens up.
3 years ago, it was like, Mr. Vega, here's what we offer you, take it or leave it. Now, Mr. Vega, when you have time, can we schedule a meeting with you? It's different, dude.
As it should be.
Yeah. So, and then I got a job. I still work for UCSD, the other university. And as I work with reentry people coming out of the system. It's a research program. So I'm part of a, you know, getting experience doing research at UCSD.
At UCSD.
Yeah, that's the other University of California of San Diego.
Oh, definitely.
So man,
listen, you are a great example of what it means to be formerly incarcerated. You know, a person with lived experience. You are blazing the path for everyone coming out. You know, and throughout this whole episode, you have been dropping a lot of jewels that I hope people are picking up. You know, as far as when you get into prison, immediately, man, go to these self-help groups. Go, even if you're not ready, get into them. Even if you're not ready, learn, get into college. You know, you can apply it to some part of your life, and your life will change for the better if you do it. You know, I always say the programs work if you work them, right? And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing your story. I know, Stephen, you know, man, talk to me.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, one thing I want to ask you, and I know you drop so many gems and so much wisdom, and you know, you got more degrees than Fahrenheit right now. But what I want to ask you, and I know you could probably go on for another hour about this, but I want to ask someone out there who's listening that's incarcerated or is in your situation or is in Will's situation, what would be a key piece of advice you would give them? Not just not just, oh, get into school, but maybe something about mindset or belief or who they need to gravitate towards to or what they should do. What's something you would give to someone listening to this podcast in your situation previously, or just someone that's struggling in life right now? It's not where they want to go.
No, I gotcha. So yeah, I take phone calls from inside prison, collect calls, and I go into the prisons, and this comes up often. What I tell them is emotional intelligence. You got to work on yourself. It's yourself. If you understand what you're going through, what you're thinking, what your thought process, what you're feeling, you'll be all right, because then you'll know how to respond. If you know what's going on with yourself, you have a better chances of responding in a healthy manner. It's not resource. I mean, resources are going to help, but the foundation, at least this is me, just me, right or wrong, this is what I believe in. It's your foundation. Your foundation should be yourself, not everything else around. Everything else around complements and is going to help you get to where you want to go. But what kept me in prison, even inside, because I was still around all the shenanigans, I just learned how to develop boundaries. I started understanding about codependencies. I started learning about anger. Why was I angry all the time? And then I started learning not to take things personal. So yes, when I started changing my ways inside, and I talked to the homies like, hey, I'm a Southerner. So I talked to the homies and I stayed GP the whole time. And look, I'm not bashing nobody if they stay GP or not. That's not my role. But I learned how to communicate. And what I learned is you got to know how to open up and be vulnerable. Vulnerable in a man culture in prison, it's frowned upon. But when I talk to the homies like, hey, this isn't working out for me no more, I want to go home, and I explain myself. Yes, there was a couple homies that talk bad stuff, but the majority were like, do your thing, dude. We know, and I was consistent, by the way. I was consistent what I was doing. I'm doing a lot of good stuff. But when somebody would call me a name, I knew it wasn't me. It was something going on with the individual. That's why the person was calling me a name. But that's what I believe is emotional intelligence. Understand what you're going through. Understand, and be empathetic. And this whole idea. Sorry, I'm a substance abuse counselor with a master's degree level. I'm a Cat C4. So anybody that's been in prison and taking a substance abuse knows exactly what a Cat C is. I'm a 4. I do not believe drugs is a problem. I do not believe gangs is a problem. I believe there's something deeper inside. So when I address a lot of these matters, I don't even really talk about gangs. I don't even talk about drugs. And I worked in treatment centers. I talk about the core of the individual. It's the mindset. I believe there's a lot of value in what we've been through. Yes, as traumatic as it is, and as harmful and how much damage we caused our own families, our neighborhoods. How do we embrace that? How do we embrace those skill sets that we learn in the gangs as a drug dealer, as a gang member? How do we embrace those skills that made us successful and bringing it to the legit world? Because in substance abuse and all these other programs, they say you got to get away from everything you've ever known. And I went through it for years. I was being misguided. So there's nothing wrong with being accepted, wanting accepted. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel important, to feel the need to survive. Those are human needs. Anybody been through Breaking Barriers knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Breaking Barriers program inside prison. Mm-hmm. It's how you're satisfying those needs is what is harmful. So when I assaulted somebody and got a pat in the back for acceptance, feel important, that's what was wrong. The mindset of, okay, let me harm somebody. I'm still satisfying those needs. I still got those needs, but the way I do it is service work. When somebody gives me a call, hey, I need help with this, no trip, I got you. It feels good to help somebody out. But there's a lot of value. Look, I joke, I make light of it, that I took prison politics to San Diego State University. What I took is the hustle, it's the drive. As a gang member, you're gonna learn how to be a team player. You're gonna learn how to be a mindful. You can't take matters into your own. As much as people say I'm my own man, I'm gonna do what I want there. No, you're not gonna do what you want. Doesn't work that way. You're going to learn how to be mindful. You're going to learn about composure. You can't just respond in an impulsive manner. These are skill sets. How do you delegate duties? How do you, you're a drug dealer, you're learning how to network with a bunch of people. These are skill sets. And then when I finally came to term and realize this and I embrace it, I joke about it. I took prison politics at San Diego State University. I'm in a PhD program. From
Mm.
serving a life sentence, I'm now in a
Man.
PhD program where they're asking me to be a professor.
Bro,
So
talk your talk, man.
If you don't
Talk your
believe,
talk.
this is me believing. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. This is what I believe. So somebody's incarcerated, there's a loved one out there, and their loved one is struggling about their identity. Look, I'm still a homie, right? I'm tatted up, tatted on the head. I have not intentionally not taking it off, and all my tattoos are pretty much gang related. But my tattoos have a different meaning now.
Mm-hmm.
Perseverance, determination. I've been through the struggle. It's embracing my own identity now. From being that Mexican kid that was not Mexican enough over there and too Mexican in the US, I embrace who I am now. I care. I love myself, you know, with all the flaws, everything good and bad. I embrace it, and here I am. So if anybody struggles, hey, embrace what we've been through.
Embrace what you've been through. Hey, man, I appreciate you, Tavo. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story, and I know for 100% you're gonna touch somebody, man. So once again, man, this has been a great episode of Post Week Chronicles. I'm Will,
and I'm Steven,
and we out.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.